Hello everyone, today we are going to cover the topic recovery scenarios and I'm going to cover each and everything about this particular topic in detail, so you're going to gain a very nice understanding about this particular topic. This is quite an important topic from an understanding perspective as well as from the interview questions perspective, so please pay attention. Okay, so as the name suggests, recovery scenarios are the type of scenarios which are used to recover a test case or a test step or a test step value from failure. Okay, now in order to understand this better, we'll try to understand what are the different kind of failures. Okay, so let me create a subtopic here. So there are basically three different kind of failures in which TOSCA classifies all its failures. Okay, so there are three failures which is called as, like, one is very standard verification failure in which your expected is not matching actual. Okay, and then there could be your dialog failure in which you're trying to steer something but that particular item is not steerable. Okay, and then there could be certain exceptions, so that is called as exception failure. Okay, now let's try to understand it with an example. Okay, now let's say I have automated a test case which has 10 pages and I'm completing any end-to-end flow. I have automated everything is working fine. Okay, but the application pops up a certain pop-up on any of the particular page at any point. It is very random. Okay, how would we handle that kind of scenario? So what we can do is, in order to handle that particular pop-up appearing on any page at any point in time, I will put whatever steps, like I need to close that particular pop-up, that I'll mention in recovery scenario. So what will happen is that will be handled using recovery scenario. So that is just for explaining one particular example. Now we are going to take another example in which I'm going to perform everything and showcase it. Okay, so we understand first thing is failures. Now second thing is there could be different levels on which it could be applied, so we'll try to understand that. So it could be applied at a test case level, a test step level, or a test step value level. Okay, so let me create all these three here and mention it. So we can identify it at test case, test step, or test step value. Okay, I'll explain that as well in terms of TOSCA. So test step value level. Okay, now I have already created a test case, so we do not spend time in just creating a test script. So here if you see, whatever number of steps are there in this, like 6, 7, 8 steps are there, so this all combined is called as test case. Okay, so if I want, I can recover my test case at a test case level. Okay, what will happen is whenever any failure will happen, it will go to recovery scenario and then it will execute all the test steps from the start. So that is called as test case level. Okay, now let's say this particular step fails. Okay, so what will happen is I just want to recover this particular test step. So what will happen is, in those kind of failures, it is going to go to recovery scenario, recover, perform those set of steps, and then come to again this particular step. So that is called as test step. And let's say in this there are two actions being performed and I just want to attempt recovering a certain test step value. So only that particular thing will be recovered. We'll see all these things in examples. So in case it is not making sense right now, it is going to be very clear in some time. Okay, so few pointers for recovery scenarios, very important pointers. So this will be only activated in case of failures. Okay, in case of failures, and this can contain any number of steps, which you want to define as per your test scenarios. Okay, and then this could only be, like, we cannot run this in scratchbook, so runs only in execution list. Very important points from interview question perspective. Okay, so let's understand how do we do the setup. So few pointers about the recovery scenarios in the left section, and we'll talk about how to set it up and how to get started working with this. Okay, so in case for setting it up, the first and foremost thing is we need to enable this in the global settings. Enable in global settings. Okay, so if you create recovery scenario and you do not enable in global settings, it is not going to work. So that is the primary step 1. So you go to your project and you go to settings. Once the settings is loaded, you will find this T-box section. This T-box section is there. You click on this and you will find this recovery. Okay. Now the moment I click on recovery, you'll see a lot of things popped up here: dialog, exception, verification. So these are the different type of failures which we were discussing. So TOSCA gives us the ability to recover as well as set things at a granular level. So here if you see, since they have mentioned all these three options, I have the option to set it up at as to whichever level I want to recover. So let's say I want to recover a dialog failure, I can select recover here. If I click on this, you'll see three other different options exist. So let's say on this particular failure I want to continue, so I can click on continue, or I can execute the next test case, or stop the execution, or recover. Since we are talking about, since this whole video is about recovery scenarios, we are going to, I've mentioned recover in all these three sections. However, based on your business requirement, you can set it up accordingly. Okay. Now here we were talking about levels, right? Like these three levels. So it gives us the option to set the number of retries. What do we mean by retries is how many times do I want to reattempt at making my test case get executed. So that is the number of retries. So you have the ability to enter whatever value you want here. You can mention 10, you can mention 5. So whatever the number of retries you will mention here, that many number of times recovery scenarios is going to get triggered and try to recover your test case in case of failure. So we'll mention just one and we'll close it as of now. Okay. Now I have already created a test case in which we are using one automation mock website and placing a certain order. So let me just showcase that. If I'll right click and I'll run in Scratchbook, so we'll understand the scenario what we are going to work with. So it is going to log in, it is going to select a certain product. So it is going to select a certain product. I did that manually, but I'll explain that. And it will click on checkout and it will click on continue and finish, and it will close the browser. So this is what our test case is. Okay. Now let's say this test case is working perfectly fine. Okay. However, what happens is this application behaves in a way that if I move to the second page, so I'll show that. So if I run in Scratchbook, post login, I'll just pause this. So it is happening very fast. So anyways, I'll click on this add to cart and I'll close this. Okay. So what will happen is my test script is going to fail. I have manually done that just for us to understand recovery scenarios concept. Okay. So what will happen is once I've clicked that add to cart, and let's say our test script fails in between, or the browser get closed, or some condition happens. Okay. Now when I'll reattempt my test case, if you will take a look at my test steps here, it is trying to click on add to cart item. Okay. Now what will happen is, since it is not going to find add to cart item, it is going to fail. So let's see that failure so that we are able to understand this very well. So if I click on test case and if I click on run, it is going to log in, and then it is trying to click on add to cart at this particular section, Sauce Labs backpack. Since it is not finding that button, it is waiting, and then eventually it will turn to failure. Okay. Now we can handle this particular scenario using conditions or using recovery scenarios as well. Since we are specifically talking about recovery scenario, we will deal with this particular scenario using recovery scenarios. Okay. So see, if I go to failures and if I go to this, here it says that could not find add to cart button. Okay. Now what set of steps do I need to perform so that my test script gets executed? If I click on this remove button, okay, then it is going to work fine, because that is what the problem was happening. Okay. So I've already scanned all those things, so we do not waste time in that. So here if you see, I have already selected remove button, but what I'll do is I'll create this recovery scenario from scratch. So first thing is, whatever folder you want to create, you can create. So I'll just write recovery scenario demo. Okay. And inside this I will create my test case. Okay. test case recovery scenario. Okay, and inside this I'll put all these test steps, or I can copy this all together. So basically this is our positive test case. Okay, now we were talking about the failure, right? If remove button will come, what will happen? So how do we create that? We go to whatever folder we are dealing with, we right click and we'll find these three buttons. Right click and we'll find these three buttons. You click on this and you'll be able to see this option called create recovery scenario collection. The moment you click on this, this folder will get created. However, this is like a top folder. So again you need to right click and you will find this option called recovery scenario, that is collection, and inside that you will have recovery scenario. So you'll click on this. This is going to create something like this. Now the moment this is created, take a look at the right hand side. In case your properties is not open, you can click on this arrow button and open the properties, and here you will see this option called retry level. So the retry level could be set at 3 levels, is what we have discussed before, these 3 different levels, right? So here you will find the option test case level, test step level, or test step value level. Okay, we'll start with test case, but we'll cover the other 2 as well. Okay, now inside this, what should go inside this? Okay, so whatever steps you think you would need in order for your test script to run fine or to handle that particular failure, you can mention in this. Okay, so in this case we have the remove button. The moment if we are closing this, it is going to work. Okay, however, in case of this particular scenario, since it is at test case level, it is going to start from the first step. So since it is going to open the URL and login page again, it would make sense I click on that remove button and I close the browser, right? So that is the number of step I'm going to mention here. So I have already created that one, so I'll just copy paste that and I'll just showcase what I have done. Let me copy this. So here in the number of steps, you'll see I am just checking, is the remove button visible? Yes, it is visible. If it is visible, then click on the remove button, then just wait for 5 seconds and then close the browser and wait for 5 seconds. Okay, that's all I have included here. Okay, now we saw that this was turning into failure the last time. I will close this, and in the next set of certain runs we'll do this manually. Okay, but I'll close this, and this should kick off our recovery scenario. Okay, now the second important thing which we have discussed about it, this only runs in execution list. So if I'll run it in my scratchbook, recovery scenario is not going to get activated. This is one constraint. So you have to move your test script into execution list. So I'll right click, I'll create a new execution list. We can mention it as recovery scenario. Okay, and I can just drag and drop my folder into execution list, and now in case of failure my scenario is going to get triggered. So let's see that in action, if it works or not. So I'll right click, or I can right click rather here or there, wherever, and I'll run. So our application is launched. It clicked on login. It is trying to look for add to cart button. It is not visible. So it is going to now take a look at what is there in my recovery scenario section. So it has moved there, and recovery scenario is checking the steps that, okay, is the remove button visible, and then it is going to click on remove button and perform the steps, and then again come back to the test script. So see, it has clicked on remove button, and now it will close the browser and then it will re-attempt the test case. We'll take a look at the steps of the execution list as well for better understanding, but let this flow get completed. So see, our test case is passed and we have successfully handled a failure scenario here. Okay, now if I go here, and this is my latest execution, right? So if I'll take a look at this, and let me maximize this. So see, first it has opened the URL, it has clicked on login, and it was trying to click on add the item, right? It was not able to find this button because remove button was there. Okay, so what happened is, after this, since it turned into failure, and since the recovery scenario was present, it said that go and take a look if there is a recovery scenario. Yes, there is a recovery scenario, then perform the steps inside the recovery scenario. So these are the steps what we have mentioned. We have validated that this particular button exists, we have clicked on that particular button, we have waited, and then we have closed the browser. Okay, now my recovery scenario steps are completed. Now what it will do is it will re-attempt at the test case level. Since we have defined it at the test case level, it is going to execute each and every step from the start. So it has opened the URL, it has clicked on login page, it has clicked on add item to cart, and then performed the similar steps. Okay, so this is how we have handled it at test case level. Okay, now let's say I do not want my script to attempt it from the start again and again. Okay, I want only the particular step to be recovered. How do we do that? We go to the test cases, we go to the recovery scenario section. Okay, let me close this. This is what we were talking about, recovery scenarios, and I'll go to my folder, and here in the retry level on the right hand side, instead of test case, I'll select test step. Okay, now what will happen is I've saved this. I'll go to execution list, and first of all manually I will make that as a remove button, so our test case runs into failure. So just wait for a few seconds. I am just making this particular scenario as, so I'll click on this add to cart, and I'll close this. Okay, now if I'll reattempt this execution, we'll see the changes. Okay, I'll click on run, and it is going to perform the similar steps. Again, it is trying to find add to cart, it is not able to find, and it is going to click on remove button. However, I have made a minor mistake in terms of steps, which I'm going to explain, but let this run once. So it is clicking on remove, and then it will close the browser. Since I have mentioned the retry level at a test step level, then it is not going to perform the steps of opening the browser and entering the URL. That's why this is going to fail. So we have to do few changes in terms of the steps in recovery scenario. I'll explain that. So see, this has failed, and we'll take a look at this. This will give us a better understanding. So if I'll open this, see what has happened is here it is trying to find that particular item. It is not visible. It is kicked off the recovery scenario. However, in the recovery scenario, we are clicking on the remove button, and then we are closing the browser. Since this is at test case level, it has not started from step 1. Whichever step it has failed, it was trying to rerun that particular test step. So that's why it has failed. So if I go to my test case, here I have to disable this, or probably I can disable both of these. Okay, now I'll save this, and we'll go to our execution, and it might have clicked on the it has clicked on the remove button. So I'll just recreate that condition. I'm making this manually just to explain the recovery scenario, but by after understanding this concept, you can apply this into your business requirement in wherever you will understand the need, wherever we can apply this. Okay, so I'll close this, and I'll go to my execution list, and I'll rerun this. Okay, now in this case it should work. So I'll click on run. It will log in, it will try to find add to cart, it is not visible. Then it will understand that okay, I need to take a look at recovery scenarios and what steps are there inside that. So the step inside the recovery scenario says to click on remove button, and then it will follow the further steps. We'll wait for this execution to get completed. Now it should click on add to cart, and then on the cart link, and then checkout, enter some values, continue, finish, and place the order. Okay, so we have handled our failure scenario using the test step level. So here if you will take a look in this, see, it has performed first two steps, it has failed here, it has activated the recovery scenario, and then it is not taking these two steps, it is starting from the same step. So this step and then whatever steps are after that. Okay, now this was at test step level. If you want to compare it with the test case level, here you see after the recovery scenario, open URL login page is happening again, but in this case of test step level, it is not happening. Okay, now the third thing which we need to understand is we can set it up at test step value level as well. What do we mean by that? Now let's say in this particular page, I have only this is the reason I have mentioned two validations here, so that it makes us understand test step value better. Okay, so what happens is, let's say you have more validations on this particular page. So at whichever step it is going to fail, that is going to be reattempted in case of test step value level. We'll see that in action. So I'll go to my recovery scenario. In case of retry level, I will set it as test step value level. Okay, now I'll save this. I'll save this and I'll go to this, add item to cart, and I will make my application again to the same state in which it fails. So I'll log in and I'll make that add to cart button as a remove button by clicking on it. So I'll click on this and I will close this. Okay, now notice that here we have changed it to test step value, so we should be able to see something similar like that. Okay, so I go to my execution list, I right click and I run this. So it has logged in and it is trying to click on add to cart. However, there is one more validation which is happening. Once this execution gets finished, we'll take a look at and I'll explain what all differences is there in terms of minor details as well. So it will click on remove button and then it will perform the remaining steps. So we have recovered our test case successfully at all the three different levels with one retry. We can put multiple retries as well, but let's take a look at this execution pass. So here if you will take a look at this, you will not be able to find recovery scenarios mentioned anywhere. However, if you will take a look at test step, you will be able to find it recovery scenario here, and in case of test case, you will be able to find recovery scenario here. Okay, however in this case you will not be able to see. Does that mean those actions did not perform? It did perform. That's why it clicked on the remove button, but we'll see where it happened. So our failure was happening on this particular step. So if you'll click on this, you will see that it was trying to click on add to cart. However, since that button was not available, it has failed. But there is another instance of the same step. Okay, so here you see in this particular step we had two values. Cart link, we were validating if it is appearing, then verification is successful, and we were clicking on add to cart. We were performing two actions. This action worked fine, so it has went to another action, add to cart. It has went to add to cart, it was not able to find, so it has tried to recover only this particular step. That's why it is called as test step value. And here it will not mention recovery scenario, it will mention it here, recovered and could not find this and tag button this, and then it has performed. However, it places it like this, that sometimes you might feel that okay, this is executed first, but if you will take a look at the logs here, it is 2817 and this is 2843. So this got executed at a later point in time, right? So this is how at test step value you can recover it. Okay, now we have understood all the three key concepts: failures, levels, setup, and when it will be activated, why it will be activated, and wherever we are going to use. Okay, now let's say I have different test cases. However, and I want to apply different kind of recovery settings inside the test cases according to my test case. Okay, so can you do that? Yes, you do have the option of that. So whichever test case you have, you go to your test configuration level. Okay, and here you right click and you click on this test configuration parameter, and you click on this option, and you'll be able to find like dialog failure, dialog, or give me 1 second, you should have something called retries. Okay, so see here, test step retries, you have test value, test case retries, and all those, like whatever settings we have done in the global settings, we can set it up here as well. Okay, so if I mention it 2 here, and if it is mentioned 1 in the global settings, the settings at test configuration parameter is going to take precedence over the settings at global level in terms of the details. However, that does not mean that if you have not activated in global settings, this is going to work. So first step is it needs to be activated in global settings, and second thing is whatever you mention in test configuration parameter, that is going to take precedence over global settings. Now if I'll show this again, I'll go to settings and I'll go to T box, and here if you see in recovery we have 6 options, right? So here if I have mentioned 1, there I have mentioned 2, then it is going to attempt it at 2 times. So it is on dialog failure, on exception, and on verification failure. So if I'll right click on this and I'll try to search for on dialog failure, so see here also I can mention it. So there in the global settings I have mentioned it as recover. However, here let's say on this particular test case I do not want to do that, I can click on whatever option I want, and this settings is going to be applied to only this particular test case. So that's how you can use it at a test case level if different test cases have different requirements. Okay, now I'll just see if in case I have missed something else. So failures we have covered, levels we have covered, setup we can set it up global settings, and then we can set it in TCP. TCP is going to take precedence over, going to take precedence over global settings, but the global settings needs to be enabled. That is a important criteria, and here it will be activated only in case of failures, contains any number of steps, and runs only in execution list. One more important point I wanted to cover is, if you will see the scenario, you might feel that okay, this condition, this is something which I can handle using the if condition or the conditional statements in TOSCA. So in this particular example, the answer is yes, you can do that, but there could be different scenarios in which recovery scenario is going to be more efficient, and in this scenario as well I can explain. So let's say I'm trying to use a conditional statement. What will happen is whenever I'm adding a conditional statement here, it is going to first perform that conditional statement and then execute the certain set of steps. However, in case of recovery scenario, this is only going to get activated in case of failure. So let's say that condition does not happen in this, then my test case is going to get executed fine without even touching this. So my execution time is also going to be faster. So the example what we are discussing in this particular case, recovery scenario is going to be a efficient and effective solution. Now there could be cases in which conditions are effective solution, but that will depend on your business requirement, your scenario, test scenario, how it is designed, how application is behaving. Okay, now this is let me minimize this in case you want to take a screenshot of this, and in case this is helpful, do take a screenshot of this. And this is a very important topic. Let me know how you found this video. In case this was helpful, do like, share and subscribe, and in case you want me to cover a certain topic, do mention in the comment section, and based on the number of requests I'll try to take up that session. I hope this was helpful. Thank you very much. Have a great day. Bye bye.